I'd like to I'd like to return to the public meeting of the City School District of Albany Board. And I'm going to start by inviting anyone who would like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to please do so. We have a flag in the back. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of the City School District of Albany is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Mrs. Adams, do you have a report for us tonight?
I do. Madam President, members of the board, in light of the violence that continues to plague our community, I would like to provide an update on the ongoing steps the school district is taking with our community partners to address some of the root causes and to provide additional wraparound services for our students. As you know, we are engaged in this work year-round on a year-round basis in partnership with a number of agencies. These partners include the Mayor's Office, the Albany Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, the Albany County Family Court, Albany County Probation, and Albany County Court. In early June, we held a roundtable discussion on violent incidents involving our students. The next steps from this session will include a youth focus group, retooling efforts around family support, parent engagement, and attendance accountability, building credible messengers through a collaboration with the Albany Police, Probation, and Child Welfare, safety and diversion plans for students most at risk of getting involved in dangerous activities, and continuing to examine the process of reporting and sharing information. We also have assembled a task force charged with developing a school arrest diversion program for the district. In addition to the stakeholders mentioned previously, the State Division of Criminal Justice Services and the State Defenders Association are partnering in that work with us. A task force met several times last school year and will continue that work with upcoming meetings in early August. In late June, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Instruction, Lori McKenna, Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Dr. Carrie Canzon-Ball, and Albany High School Security Director Mike Wager attended a gun violence interruption program hosted by the Albany Police Department. This gathering focused on members of our community at risk of being involved in violent crimes. Finally, we are continuing to train our staff members across the school district in trauma-informed care practices. We know how important it is for our district to provide stronger supports for students whose lives have been impacted or are at risk of being impacted by violence. It is critical to all of us in the school district that we dedicate ourselves to being part of the solution in these matters of life and death that our children are too often encountering. I will keep you updated on our ongoing efforts as we move forward. With the start of our elementary Jumpstart program this week, our summer school programs are now in full swing. We have 8 summer school programs serving students from pre-kindergarten through high school. These programs operate through the first weeks of August, culminating with summer regent exams August 16th and 17th, and Albany High's summer graduation ceremony on August 22nd. All of our summer school food service program locations are in operation. We have 11 schools throughout the city where everyone age 18 and younger can get a free breakfast and lunch each weekday. These programs also run through early and mid-August. Please visit albanyschools.org for more information about all of our summer school and summer meals programs, including the dates, times, and location. Last Thursday, we held a construction trades information session and job fair at the Finishing Trades Institute in Menands. The session was a part of our ongoing MWBE and workforce development outreach and engagement activities. We held the event in partnership with the Greater Capital Region Building and Trades Council, Turner Construction, and Mission Accomplished Transition Services. The event gave participants a chance to learn more about career pathways in the construction trades, to meet in person with representatives from several local unions, and to fill out applications to join a union. 26 people attended. It was an extremely informative session, and I want to thank all of our partners for joining together to help us open these career opportunities for our residents. Our MWBE/Workforce Development Database project is now moving forward with a focus group tomorrow morning. Dominic Ebanks from our partners at Acuta Digital will present data from our recent database survey and discuss design and development strategies that will be a good fit for our community's needs. I will continue to keep you updated on our MWBE and workforce development initiatives as we move forward. We are getting ready for our annual Summer Celebration and Safety Day this Saturday. This is the 7th year of our school district's family event at Crank Park in Albany's South End. It is also the 2nd year of our partnership with Mohawk Ambulance, which has allowed us to expand the event and add a range of safety-related activities for children. Summer Celebration features many of our guests and our great partners sharing a wealth of information with our families and community members. We also have fun activities for our children, live music, and a family-style cookout. In addition, the popular Crank Park spray pad will also be open. The summer celebration is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. this Saturday. The event will go on rain or shine, but the weather forecast looks very promising, and I hope to see everyone there. At this time, I'd like to thank, she's here tonight, Ms. Paula Tibbetts, who is our former Board of Education clerk, and we want to thank you for your service as you transition to your new role as the superintendent secretary. So thank you very much for your service. This concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. So we're now going to enter public comment. Mrs. Lippett, you will be first, and if you want to approach the microphone while I read our public comment statement, that would be great. The Albany Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. We appreciate community input about the decisions we are making. In addition to accepting comments during the public comment period, we also accept comments by email, by phone, or by postal mail. While you're making your remarks, keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. Please share concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal to that person's supervisor, up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Finally, please note that the board generally does not respond during the public comment period. If you need a response, please consider contacting us by email, phone, or postal mail. When I recognize you, please state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will be given a 1-minute and 10-second notice, and I will notify you if your time has expired. Mrs. Lippett.
Hi, I'm Anna Marie Lippett. I live on Magazine Street. I just wanted to come in quickly, and I'm supposed to be at Alive at 5 at Reggae Night with my friends and husband, but I wanted to take a moment to speak on behalf of IB, the IB program, now that our year has ended and my daughter has completed the program. It's always been a tradition in our Capital Education newspaper to provide the much anticipated and impressive list of accepted colleges for our seniors. Princeton and Yale, along with Williams and Wesleyan, appear because our only IB diploma candidate got accepted to them. The first Albany High School student to get accepted to Princeton in 7 years, and the first for the other 3 colleges in 3 years. One of 10 applicants to the Ivies this year, and one of only 4 accepted, the only female. We currently have Albany High School students attending 8 of the Ivies that I know of. Also, from my informal study, the Ivies accepted IB students, with the exception of Brown and Cornell, which have accepted non-IB students. If we want to continue to have these colleges on the list, we need students taking IB. And as Wesleyan said in their info session, if you are taking IB, you better be taking the diploma. I got the impression one is almost a shoo-in. I'm convinced that it is IB that gave my daughter the edge over her peers who applied. 5 in all from Albany High School applied to Princeton alone. After touring the Ivies over the course of 2 years, I've always thought we should have more students applying to them. Their financials do not include student loans, and a student can attend for free with a family income of less than $62,000. Of course, one has to be able to get in. It's competitive. A current cabinet member attended an Ivy and a former board president as well. I had the discussion with him as I've often thought that we should have a committee to help identify students coming up whose goal might be to make application to some of these colleges. How would this be done? Through the IB, I believe. 2 years ago, 91% of our IB students were students of color and all female. This year, none of color and 1 female IB diploma candidate. Our former coordinator had met the goal of getting more students of color into the program. She increased the number each year over 4 years. We need to get back to recruiting pronto and have a highly knowledgeable person recruiting. An article appeared in the newspaper of my former elementary middle school, the smallest school district in New York State, Newcomb Central School. They had to save themselves a K-12 school of about 50 kids. They now host an international program that brought in 100 students from 29 countries. Why can't we get at least 15 kids in a school of 2,300 students to take the IB diploma? We are the capital of New York State, the Empire State. I think it's to our advantage to have the IB program. I'd like to read somewhat, well, maybe I'll leave it with the superintendent, who I am very thankful that you are meeting with parents on
Ms.
Monday,
Lippett,
Ms. West.
we're just about out of time. If you
And
can wrap it
maybe
up.
I'll send you my daughter's comments on her experience with the IB program. Thank you.
Nolene Smith.
Good evening. My name is Nolene Smith. I live at 869 Lancaster Street, right behind Albany High School. I just can stop by to say thank you to a couple of people. One person I don't remember her name, that I want to shout out to, the person that does the special ed evaluation for Arbor Hill. She did give me her card, but I have 100 or so. I don't know what happened to it. But I really want to say that I've been with this district for a long, long time, and I've dealt with a lot of people, and I just felt that she was so appropriate. She was so knowledgeable.
Ms.
and
Smith, I'm going to just interrupt you because we really appreciate it when people don't make particular comments, even positive ones, about particular personnel.
That's all.
So
That's
if you can
okay.
speak generically about your benefit, your
Well,
improvement in special ed, I'd appreciate
I would
that.
have
Thank you.
a First Amendment right. I'm going to use it. I'm saying to you that I think that when staff are doing well, we should be able to say they're doing well. And so I'd like for you guys to make sure. I'm a very critical person, so I feel like it's cool when I come to say something nice, okay? So I just want to let her know that I really appreciate how well she looked out for this young person. The child had to be transferred out of Arbor Hill, but she made it clear to the parent and myself that we had to get this kid ready by the 3rd grade, and she felt that she needed to do that. So I really want to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you to Nancy Vigiani and Ron Lesko. Sorry. 2 people that worked really hard to get the Baby Institute a space for their summer camp. On June 11th, I was told that we wouldn't be able to use the space that we were renting for summer camp for all kinds of reasons. But with hard work, some people got us in a space, and we have 56 little people getting ready for pre-K, and we serve 68 lunches every day at the Tony Clement Middle School. I really appreciate the support, and thank you to all of you working really hard.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Alana Klein.
Alana Klein, Glenwood Street, 12208. I want to kind of reiterate a couple things that the superintendent touched on. I think we should do anything and everything in our power to not only support the students that have families or friends that have been affected by this violence, but focus on programs that can lead them, keep them on the straight path, whether that be after-school programs, supporting community outreach, anything like that. Also, I have personally seen, I'm helping out with a local basketball camp, I have personally seen the benefits of the free lunch and free breakfast programs. So I just want to express my support for that. Some of these kids, as you know, the reason we do this, some kids have a parent or parents that work weird hours, sometimes can't get a meal, so that's definitely something we should keep and even expand on. Also, the superintendent mentioned Crank Park. There's a community picnic going on at Swinburne Park this Saturday, 2 to 6, and I'm sure that, I don't have a flyer on me, but I'm sure one of you knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who has this flyer. So if you could search Facebook, just get the word out, that would be appreciated. Also, Ms. Savage, I do want to recognize you. Thank you very much for your timely and kind response to my email and forwarding my comments from last meeting, which I was unable to attend, to all the board members. That's a welcome change from a previous comment that I got that I tried to submit to the board. I don't know if it was email problems or something like that, but it was a couple months back. I couldn't attend the meeting. And that kind of leads into my next comment. As you saw about a month ago, I had some issues with how this board handled one of the issues I was concerned with. But the board's been reshuffled. There's a new member. So I'm working with a clean slate here. Bygones be bygones. I didn't want it to come to my 3 minutes plus of silence, that meeting, but within a half an hour of me sitting in the audience, the situation was resolved. Someone came up to me and said, we are going to be talking about that issue. We'll bring it up in September. So I don't want it to come to that. But again, clean slate now, but there have been a handful of issues from the public that have been brought to the board's attention that frankly haven't even been addressed by the board, or very little has been done or been addressed by the board. The school teacher contract, the issue I was talking about with the EAT and the school calendar, the woman who talked about concussion protocol. So just long story short, please listen to your constituents. At the end of the meeting, even if they're not here, just say, we hear your concerns, this is what we're going to do. We'll put it on the agenda, XYZ meeting, something like that. But yeah, I know you're not in it for the money. You're in it because you care. So just make sure that we feel our voices are heard. Boycott the NRA, Black Lives Matter. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for your comments. So now we are going to move on to routine consent. I would like to entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent. Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Wilson. Are there any set-asides? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting routine consent? That is unanimous. And now I am going to move on in a bittersweet moment to discussion of the policies tonight. This will be my first time not getting to lead this section of the agenda, as I welcome Dr. Tutor to his new role as the chair of the policy committee.
Ms. Savage, I have two policies up today. The first one is policy 9170, which is up for discussion. It's a policy on meals and refreshment. And the second one, which is actually an action item today, is the one we discussed last time, 1500, which is public use of district facilities. Um, Do we want to take the action item first or discussion?
That sounds terrific. So shall we entertain a motion? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Roach. All in favor of adopting 1500 as proposed? That's unanimous.
So 9170 is the policy in meals and refreshments, where we have a policy in place, and we wanted to make sure we revise the policy to reflect some of the changes that have come through from other policy amendments that we made, like the wellness policy. And, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the funds that are being used for meals in schools are being distributed equitably. And also every school has a resource that's available for providing these kind of resources. So one of the changes that the proposed policy is going to do is that each building leader is going to allocate a portion of their budget for meals and refreshments that will encourage parent engagement and to support curriculum-related events. And this amount is going to be set based on a per student, per pupil basis by the superintendent. So each school would, it would be an equitable distribution. It simplifies the process. And it will no longer be necessary to review this on a continual basis. If you have 100 students, you get X amount of dollars. If you have 200, it's X amount of dollars. The limitation is to for a nominal amount is consistent with what the commissioners recommended, that food expenses should be minimized. So if there are any questions from the other members.
Ms. Roach?
I just wanted to say I'm in favor of this because it's consistent with the wellness policy, but also because it's bringing the decisions down to building level and empowering our building leaders to do what's in the best interest of their building. I think this is an appropriate change.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so there will be a motion to adopt that policy when we come back, not on the 2nd, which is going to be primarily routine consent, but on the 16th of August. Okay, so now we are going to move to a discussion action on the Code of Conduct. So I believe we will have someone. Is someone going to give us a little orientation to the Code of Conduct? Before you start, I just want to make sure that my board colleagues have noted that in a very unusual manner, we are going to discuss and act on the Code of Conduct in the same meeting. That is because we've had several public meetings on this. There's been plenty of community discussion about it, but because of the interrelationship of the Attorney General's office and their need to get back to us and our need to print material and have it mailed home by a date certain, we do not have 2 board meetings that we can have a discussion and an action. So this is an unusual thing, and it's been on the agenda this way all along.
So, Madam President, members of the board, so we will come forward just to, we know that you have the red line version, and we did have the hearing prior to the meeting, so we can go through the process of what we went through in making some of those changes and then open it up for discussion. And after this, we do have a couple of acknowledgments that I need to do, so we'll do it right after the Code of Conduct.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kate.
Good evening, Kate Howard, one of the school attorneys who's had the privilege of working with your Code of Conduct team. From my involvement, I just wanted to give you a brief summary. As you know, the Code of Conduct has been under ongoing revisions and improvements for the last several years. And this year, luckily it was much more of a tweak than a massive overhaul. The Code Committee met, reviewed, sought clarifications, had, as President Savage pointed out, numerous community meetings. Other than this evening, there was also the most recent May 10th at Arbor Hill Elementary School and May 23rd at Albany High School to review earlier changes that were made using community and school district staff input. There were, again, not major changes, but there were attempts to fill in any gaps with regards to potential safety. The addition of an express example using a threat against the school community, given some of the unfortunate and recent developments, and clarifications about the use of the term school staff, including those acting on behalf of the school district, so there are no realms of ambiguity. And in addition, in certain instances, students were referenced with specific altercations and issues That was brought in to include, students from other schools, visitors to the schools. Obviously, if there's an unfortunate incident or issue, we want to make sure that all the populace present is protected. And it went to the policy committee, and the Attorney General reviewed it. In addition to your independent monitor, they have absolutely no issue with the changes and commended the district on the work done.
Do we have any questions from board members? Ms. Roach?
I did. I just had a couple of questions. Well, one is just a factual issue, and it's the current person who's listed as the DASA coordinator for DCS, Stephen McGwell, unfortunately has left the district to accept a promotion as principal at another school. So we would hopefully try to address that. But the other question I had, just generally, it looked like there were some significant changes to the schools, or sort of not changes, but rewording to the school staff responsibilities, where there was an additional bullet for communicating progress to students and parents in a timely manner. And that's in addition to communicate regularly with students, parents, and other teachers concerning growth and achievement. And those seemed like they were sort of redundant, but I didn't know the rationale for rewording that, so maybe that's not redundant.
And with regards to the factual item, luckily we have built in and will continue to keep in that changes and updates with regards to things like the Dignity Act coordinators, et cetera, are aligned. There are a few different changes we're confirming now that will be updated. It won't require full board action. And with regards to the substantive changes, some of that was based on requests, community items, and I believe Superintendent Adams wanted to spearhead an express mandate, so I would defer to her as far as any of the additions you just referenced.
One of the additions that we did pose, it was parents have a right to know when there's a concern about their child in a classroom. And so that direct outreach from the teacher when something has happened in the classroom is absolutely something that needs to be a part of those progressive measures, and in working with correcting the behaviors and improving the behaviors of our students in the classroom.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Then I would like to entertain a motion to adopt this as the 2018-19 Code of Conduct. Dr. Chatoor, seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, Code of Conduct team. Mrs. Adams, you had something you wanted to say, I believe.
Yes. Madam President, members of the board, and to our community members, we have 2 appointments tonight, and we would like to ask them to please come forward. First of all, we have Ms. Nicole Newman, who will be taking the position of assistant principal at Albany High School. So congratulations. Please come forward. And we have Derek Gilmore, who will be taking the position of vice principal at Albany High School. So come on. Ms. Newman, if you would start.
I just want to say to the board and to Mrs. Adams and to all of the Albany community, I'm so excited to be here. I've dreamed of this, and when I reached out to Jody Comerford at the high school, I said this has been something that I've dreamed about, and I'm excited to be a part of the administrative team here, and I look forward to working with you and helping our students. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Good evening, Board of Education. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I've had so many great conversations with people from Albany over the past few weeks through the interview process and afterwards. I think the icing on the cake was meeting with Miss Adams last week and her telling me that if I want to change the world, this is the place to be. So coming away from those conversations, I feel very excited. I feel very inspired, and I'm excited to be a part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for being here in the district and here tonight. We appreciate your coming by. So I think we're going to move on to talk about the DSIP. Now, there was a discussion of this last time. Do we have need for further board discussion, or are we ready to act on the DSIP? Everyone is nodding, so I'm going to entertain a motion to adopt the DSIP as discussed last time. Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Roach. All in favor? That is unanimous. And so now we are moving on to the school comprehensive education plans. I think I got that right, the SEPs. And so we are now, this is for discussion only. We would act on this next time on the 2nd.
Good evening. So I'm going to go through the alphabet soup of the diagnostic tool for school and district effectiveness review process, so that you can understand the process that we go through before the districts or schools write their improvement plans. So from October to March, we conduct a series of building visits to determine what their needs are to inform the writing of their school comprehensive education plan. So will you advance the next one? There are several different types of review processes, and I think it's important that you understand them. The first is the Integrated Intervention Team Review, or the IIT review, and that's actually conducted with the State Education Department coming in with their own team, and a district representative sits on that team, and it's typically a 3-day process that involves classroom visits for 2 days. It involves focus groups with parents, teachers, students, support staff, and then it involves a significant amount of time compiling evidence and writing recommendations that the school is supposed to act on immediately, resulting in changes to their school comprehensive education plan and informing their future planning. Then there is the school-led review with district oversight, and that's typically the review that we do at the district level, where we go in with a district team, usually the assistant superintendent and district level supervisors and directors, to do the same process that the IIT does. So you'll note that only 2 schools received full 3-day reviews, and that's Hackett with the Integrated Intervention Review, and then Schuyler Achievement, for the first time in several years because of their change in status, received their full review. We learned this year that if our schools had had an IIT review and a school-led or district-led review, that they were able to do a self-reflection review this year. We thought it was a wonderful opportunity to give our schools a break from pulling people out for 3 days in a row to go through this review process and allow them to dive deeply into the work that they've been doing, the barriers to the work that they've come up against, and how we begin to work through those barriers. And I think Lori would agree that it was an excellent process. The schools wrote their self-reflection, and then Lori and I took teams and spent the day with the team going through the reflection, pushing back on their conception of what the barriers to the work really are and what they actually could accomplish, and again left them with actionable recommendations. And so you'll see that the majority of our schools received the self-reflection review. The demonstrable improvement indicator review is the review done specifically for schools in receivership, and that only reviews one tenant, and the district has very limited contribution to that process, and compared to the other ones, it really is a quick 1.5-day visit that they do and write the report and recommendations for.
So before I go to the April-June timeline, I just want to make 2 comments on the Integrated Intervention Team review. 2 years ago, the state added another layer to that, where the outside educational expert came back to the school on several different occasions from the time that they met for the IIT review to progress monitor the short-term recommendations that they made during the actual 3-day review. So the outside educational expert did come in and work with the Hackett team to monitor the progress toward the short-term goals to meet the long-term goals. So that was a success. It held the school accountable for the implementation of those short-term goals. And the other thing is I wanted to mention around the DER for the high school. We just received the report. It is now public, and I am happy to report that they did receive a stage 3 on their DER for this year, so they met that indicator. So that's great news for the high school. So in April, we met with administrators to go over the SEP timeline and to provide them some training around how to write their SEP. I'm happy to report this year that we didn't have to spend a lot of time on going over what it needs to look like with the administrators, because I think in the last couple of years they've really developed quality SEPs, and this year it was really just going over the timeline and then just giving them some pretty brief reminders around the components of the SEP. That took place in April, and then Dr. Wilson Turner, aka Ken Chiaffi, myself, and Michelle Bridgewater extended opportunities for us to meet with building level leadership teams to help write their SEPs. Some schools took us up on that offer, and some didn't, just depended really on their comfort of writing the SEPs with their building leadership teams. We also, in May, had training with Dr. Yvette Jackson and Carmen Jimenez from On Point Leadership to really embed some of the work into the SEPs, and you'll see some of that in the SEPs that you've reviewed. In June, well, from April to June, all building leadership teams developed their SEPs and submitted them. Cecily and I then reviewed all SEPs and provided pretty explicit feedback to for improvements to the SEPs before you actually receive them for review. So here we are tonight. You have the final SEPs. Cecily and I have approved them. They're at your level, and hopefully next meeting you'll approve. I think I kind of went through the June, July. So the reports were originally due on July 30th. We did reach out to the New York State Education Department to see if we could submit them a couple of days late in order to get in the one board meeting for discussion and the second board meeting for approval, and they did approve that, and so we will submit them on August 3rd to the New York State Education Department. Buildings are also currently working on closing out their SEPs from the 17-18 school year. They're due to Cecily and myself on July 30th, and at that point we will review, provide them any feedback if necessary, and then submit those final reports to the Board of Education through an SBU, so you know where they ended with their metrics. Just a note that Albany High School does not submit a SEP. They are required, because they're a receivership school, to write a continuation plan. That has been done, and that was in the Q3 report that they had to submit to the New York State Education Department. We also have 3 schools in good standing: Edmund O'Neill, Montessori Magnet, and North Albany. They did receive a review, and they did write a SEP. We did not submit them for approval. Actually, Cecily did submit North Albany and Montessori. I did not submit Edmund O'Neill, but I will submit that in the SBU on Monday. I didn't, but they don't go to the state. So, and we also had AIC and Tony Clement create a SEP as well. So we'll submit those for you for your review.
So as we look through all the SEPs, we do try to come up with trends, and Karen probably talked about this when she presented the DSIP. We use the trends from the building reviews to inform the work of the district, and then we look to see those trends play back through again through the SEP, so that there's an alignment between the district plan and the school plans. And so we did consistently see trends from elementary and middle school around certain areas. You know, when you look at it, you see the word data over and over and over again, and it really is getting our leaders and our teachers to focus on using data for multiple purposes in the school improvement process. So in Tenet 2, which is about school leader practices and decisions, you see a lot in the plans about creating a distributed leadership process where there's accountability, not just on the part of the school leader, which is a conversation that we had in the review process, but the school leaders. In order for our buildings to progress and to be successful and to sustain the work that we're doing, we have to build the collective capacity of all the staff in the building. And part of the way you do that is allowing your leadership team to take on the responsibilities of each of the tenets in terms of monitoring them, making sure they're being implemented, and being able to speak about them to their colleagues. So Tenet 2 is really about getting clear on those roles and responsibilities and how other leaders can take on that role of monitoring the plan to make sure the plan is actually implemented. Tenet 3 was about curriculum development and support, and so we tried to tie 3 and 4 together wherever possible, so that Tenet 3 is about the planning and the curriculum, and Tenet 4 is about the execution and the instructional practices. So in Tenet 3, you'll see a lot about using data to plan professional development, but also about using data to modify curriculum for the children that are sitting in front of them. And when we say modify, it does not mean to make it less than. It means how do you scaffold curriculum so students can begin to access grade level curriculum and begin to advance, which is a very challenging task, which is a very important task to see in our SEPs. And again, you'll continue to see differentiation as a theme throughout all of our plans. Again, getting to the level that students need the information so that they can access it. And so Tenet 4 is really a replica of that, using data to inform the differentiation of the instruction that they did in their planning and using scaffolding to deliver instruction as they did in their planning. Tenet 5 is the shift to social, emotional, and developmental health. And this is about, depending on where the school buildings are, you'll see different stages of implementation of their plans to support student behavior and student emotional health. So some schools are at the ground level and are trying to restart their plans and their programs. Other schools have elevated to a place where they have been able to manage the externalizing behaviors in their building, that's students acting out with behavior, and are now ready to move on to students who are internalizing behaviors. And so I think that's a significant growth for some of our school buildings to be able to say, we're good with the externalizing, we're now ready to dig deeper into those internalizing behaviors. And then finally, the family and community engagement tenet was very important to our schools this year. Trying to crack that nut, for lack of a better word, to really get parents what they need to feel like they are a part of the school community without having them physically always come into the building. And so we had the conversation over and over again in our school reviews. As a parent, are you able to go to every single opportunity that your child's school has? So for us to have the expectation that that's going to be what our parents do is not fair or realistic. So how do we still share with our families what we are doing in our schools in a way that makes them feel informed and involved and feel like they're capable of advocating for their students? And so I hope you notice that trend in the plans, that schools are looking for different ways to say, hey, if you couldn't come, check out Facebook. We put a quick video on, or we put something on YouTube, or we're going to send something here, so that you can still feel a part of it, and also making a concerted effort to schedule visits to families' homes who haven't been coming to the school, and not making it a gotcha that we're showing up at your door, but we're here, we're scheduling a time to come and sit with you to figure out how we can be a part of your child's success. And so those were our trends. And now we're ready for discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson-Turner. Board members, does anyone have a question or comment that they would like to share at this time? Ms. Smith.
Thank you very much for this. I had North Albany, and I apologize because that's the only piece that I had time to look at. First, and I did see the parent and family engagement, community engagement piece in there, and I really, really appreciate, Dr. Wilson-Turner, what you just said about not having a got you kind of approach to parent and community engagement. We have to make room for people to contribute where they are and what the time that they have, so I really appreciate that. The one question I had was this, and it has to do with the differentiation, and I saw that clearly intended in there for students as well as for teachers, which I think is terrific. What I wanted to ask about in that regard for students was this. So it does, and I'm just North Albany, so I saw great stuff there, but then let's say that, and I may be making some of this up, but let's say that there was a slight mention, or a mention rather, of ELL students, English language learners. But I couldn't see within the plan whether or not those students required the same kind of differentiation, if you know what I mean, versus, say a general ed, American-born student. So I guess what I'm asking is, will we see in these plans, and I might be too far in the weeds, that kind of differentiation? Like, would there ever be a special population, strategy or approaches that we might see?
So one of the things that I noticed in reading the plans when I came back was that schools they know their subgroups, right? But they also know that the majority of the students in their school are not being successful. So when they're looking at their plans, they're saying, yes, I'm going to differentiate for my L's, I'm going to differentiate for, my black students, but it may not be something drastically different that they need because they're all performing around the same place. So it really is taking the individual student data and being able to plan for that. And that's where we focus a lot of our energy at the district level, is training the teachers in the data teaming protocol so they can begin to look at data. And teachers, I would say, are more comfortable saying, I'm planning for a group of students performing at this particular level, then I'm planning for the black students, or I'm planning for the else. They're more comfortable there, knowing that our English as a new language students get additional supports pushed into the classroom as well as pulled out of the classroom.
Dr. Chator?
The plans are much well written and very comprehensive. One of the things I noticed that many of, not all, but quite a few of the schools had mentioned in the barriers section was the fact that because the staff gets pulled to do PD or what have you, they lose that consistency in the programming. And there was also mention about problems with getting effective subs. So how do we address those issues?
I don't have a good answer for you. I know we're trying with the PD model that we're doing now to hire building subs, because you'll typically get a better quality of person if you're hiring them for full-time employment versus people just showing up sporadically for on-call assignments. So we hope to be able to curb it with that. But we do have a lot of professional development in a lot of arenas, not just in the academic component. I think in one of the plans they were referring to in the social emotional component, because we've done a lot with our social workers, our behavior specialists, to be able to train them in the new tools that we want them to have to support student behavior. And so when those people are physically out of the building, you feel that. You feel when your behavior specialist and your social worker is in there and people now have to do double duty, just like you feel it when you don't have a competent, or the strongest sub in the classroom at that point in time, because they're, just a drop in person. So I think we do the best we can when we're planning long-term for sub coverage. I think it's a little harder when we're doing, pop-up professional development or individual professional development in the building. And the tricky part is we get a lot of the money from our school improvement grants and from our receivership funding, and really the only thing you can use it on is professional development. And when you're doing that, professional development falls within the school day. And so you're kind of in a vicious cycle if you aren't able to secure really good substitutes.
Ms. Roach, Ms. Wilson, do you have anything? I just have one procedural question. The self-reflections, which we were able to do this year, what happens next year?
So next year they have to have either a state-led or a district-led full review.
So it's every other year they can do a self-reflection?
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. All right, I think that is the end of this topic. Seeing nothing further, we will put these up for adoption on August 2nd. So, Dr. Wilson-Turner, unless you have a desire for a little walk, you can just stay right where you are, as the next topic is a discussion of the lottery. And I can't remember if this is your official welcome back. Is this your first official board meeting, or did you check in with us at the organizing meeting?
I was at the organizing meeting.
So, but here's
my first presenting meeting.
Welcome back. We
Well,
are
thank you.
happy to have you here.
Okay, so this information is actually based on data from our March 2018 lottery for placement of students for the 2018-19 school year for our 4-year-old pre-kindergarten programs, our 3 elementary magnet programs, and the dual language program. The goal of both lotteries is really to ensure equal access to quality early childhood education in the case of pre-K, and then equal access to the number of seats that we have at our 3 theme-based magnet programs, and access to our dual language program, which seats both English speakers and native Spanish speakers in the program. A long time ago, just for historical purposes, people used to sleep outside for pre-K seats, people used to sleep outside for dual language seats, and we really thought it was time that we moved to a system that allowed everyone to just put in an application and have equal access. The funding source for the lottery program is the general fund. The majority of that goes to our contract with Joseph Weitz and Associates, an outside consultant who conducts the lottery. About $4,000 for supplies and materials, and we have yet another new lottery administrative assistant, Kala Kutcha, who started with us last week after another transition. So our lottery process, again, is pre-K, dual language, and magnet information weeks that we start with in January. And so that's really the beginning of what the public sees about lottery. There's a lot that happens beforehand to get ready for that. So applications become available that first week in January, and then our program sites begin to share information with families so that they can make the best decision about their programming. Families are asked to prioritize their top 4 choices, and then they are asked to identify if they have a sibling in the school, and we then use their address to determine if they have neighborhood preference. This year, we added that families can opt in for sibling linking, and I'm pleased to say that that worked, for the most part, really well. I know it's something we've talked about back and forth for the last couple of years, and finally figured out a solution where families can make an informed decision and decide to say, if I have 2 children, I only want to take this seat if both of my children can get into the program, or I'm willing to take the risk of my 2 children being separated, and I do not want them linked. The lottery is assigned first using sibling preference applicants for their first choice schools. Then it goes to neighborhood preference applicants. Then it goes to just the random assignment of all applicants for their first, second, third, and fourth choice. If sibling linking is applied, whenever the first sibling's name is pulled, the other sibling comes right along with them, and as long as there's space for them, they both get a seat in the program. So after the official lottery, which is for the last few years has been held at Toast, we come back and we compile the letters that we send out to families notifying them of their results. Unfortunately, we have not yet gotten to a point where there's an electronic notification process where people don't have to physically come to Toast or wait for their letters, but I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So a letter is sent in the mail. They need this letter to physically go to central registration to register, and all the information they need to register is present on that letter. And we do 3 types of letters. We do a waiting list letter, we do a waiting pool letter, and we do a you have not yet received a seat letter, or you have received a seat letter. We create a waiting list for pre-kindergarten and for the dual language program. We use a waiting pool for the elementary magnet program. And we've had a lot of discussion about this as well, and it really comes down to what the needs are for those specific program seats and how it impacts the families. So for pre-kindergarten, we need the waiting list so that we can quickly assign students to a pre-K seat, because otherwise students are not in a program until we call them. Dual language, the board actually brought up last year. I think at the time we were just coming off the devastation in Puerto Rico, and we were having a lot of Spanish speakers come into the area, and having them have to wait in a wait pool to get into a program where they could actually speak their native language and learn, we thought was not in the best interest of our families. And so we switched dual language program to a waiting list after we physically put them in the lottery, so that we were able to give away open seats immediately. We still use a waiting pool for the elementary magnet schools because we do feel that that is the, and I'm going to choose my words carefully, I'm not going to say equitable. It is the way to make it equal for everyone to access the lottery. So I don't have a better chance than anyone else in this room to get that seat other than the preferences that we have for sibling linking and or for sibling preference and neighborhood preference. And the reason that's okay in our minds is because I can still go to school. It's not like pre-K, and it's not like being a native Spanish speaker and not being in a program setting that I need. I can go to my home school, I can wait for the opportunity to be placed into a magnet program, and I have equal odds with for the person who applies, 2 weeks ago to someone who just remembers right now. And then we use a 3-week deadline for acceptance, and 2 years ago we added the automated call reminder, which was, I think, really awesome to say, parents, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, so that we don't leave seats on the table. So I shared this data, I think, before I went on maternity leave, just so you had a sense of what the assignment results were. One of the things that we were concerned about is we moved the lottery, the actual lottery back a full month so that we could back up our kindergarten registration, so that we could have a better sense of our enrollment process. And we did not see a significant decline in the number of applicants and thus the number of seats awarded. So we were thrilled that we could back that up and still have that success. So we had a total of 769 available seats between pre-K and magnet. We had 554 applications. We had 468 students awarded a seat. And so you may say, if you have 769 seats available, how come only 468 students got a seat? And that is because of the choices that people make. So if they did not get their first, second, or third, or fourth choice, but there were other things that they could have participated in, that would be why they did not get a seat. So number of students not awarded a seat was 66 as a result. That means they remain on a waiting list or a waiting pool, depending on the program that they are in. And there are still 301 vacant seats between our pre-K programs and our magnet programs. We, like I said, will run a monthly lottery every month until December. And we had a discussion at the last board meeting, but I think I have that on my last slide to talk about. And then we always look at the demographics of the lottery to compare them to who actually applies and who's actually accepted. And we're always pleased to see that the acceptance matches who actually applies. It's not significantly different in any way, but it does tell us the story of what families are accessing which of our programs. And we've had a discussion about the shift in demographics at Montessori, moving it from downtown to uptown. We've talked about the impact of not having pre-K busing and pre-K being the entry point to our magnet programs and how that influences what the demographics of our school community looks like. But I did note that the numbers have shifted a little bit. Oh, I'm missing a column. I'm missing the white column. Have shifted a little bit at Montessori for Black and Hispanic students. Not huge, but still trending in the right direction in that way. So I try to make note of, as we go through the lottery process in the season, what type of parent phone calls and concerns that we get throughout the process. And I'm grateful to say, I think through really just a really strong administrative assistant, a much more clear process and document that we send to families, that those phone calls are very limited this year, at least as they reach to my level. That means she managed a lot on her level, just clarifying information. However, two that came up prior to me leaving were making an informed decision and what information we share. So we thought we did a really great job of sharing historical information so people have a sense of how many people apply to which programs, to give them a sense of which ones are much more difficult to get into. So we do share the historical application acceptance statistics, and we do tell you that there are X amount of seats at this school, and so your likelihood of getting in is going to be based on that. We received a question about, well, can you tell me how many people are in the waiting pool? And we don't share that information. And the main reason we don't is because I could never give you an accurate answer. After the lottery is run, we input applications every single day. Every single day you'll have a different number for how many are in that waiting pool. So you could call me on Monday and I could say there are 30 in the waiting pool. By Friday I could tell you there were 45. By the time I actually did the monthly drawing, there could be 75. And so that information is constantly changing, which is the primary reason we don't share it, because it wouldn't be accurate. But I can understand people trying to figure out their odds, but it doesn't help also because you don't know how many are sibling preference, how many are neighborhood preference, how many are sibling linked. You don't know any of these other factors, and nor do we as we're going through that particular process. So our recommendation is that we continue to share the information that we're sharing, and that allows people to make an informed decision. We discussed last time the December enrollment cutoff. I tried to find out if anybody knew if there's some other magical reason other than us needing to have the numbers be accurate, and there really isn't. We stop enrolling in our 3 magnet schools the last day of school in December. And we do that because basically on January 2nd when we get back, we say to the public, here are the seats that you have. And the minute I enroll somebody on January 3rd, the number of seats change. So I run into that same problem where my information would not be accurate. But quite frankly, that's the only reason I can find that's why we stop enrollment at December. It shouldn't mean that our magnet schools don't get to take new students like everybody else takes until the very last day of school. And that's the only other challenge. I thought I put it on here. So every year we debrief the lottery process. We work with Lisa Andreamy in the communications office to tweak our application. We review all the protocols. We try to clean up any little missteps that we saw the previous year so that they don't carry forward the next year. And in March, we give an update to the Board of Education every year on the progress of the lottery. So the last bullet is something that I spoke with Kent Baker about and with Lori McKenna about in terms of, we've worked with Joseph White & Associates for years, I think since the inception of the lottery in the 90s. And one of the things that we've talked about doing is being able to do electronic notification to families that this is where you got in or this is where you didn't get in, that they're not waiting for a letter or trying to call the magnet office along with 1,000 other people. And so, of course, Ken Baker's like, I could build something, but I can't supersede the lottery process. And so we talked about the idea of whether we should do an RFP for services for everything that we want our lottery to be able to do and see what's able to come back so that we are able to give that electronic notification. Because right now, the only way we could do that is putting individual numbers on applications, trying to get those back, build a database, et cetera. So I think that is our best option at this point in time. However, I don't know that we would be able to complete it in time because our high school lottery is done by the same process. We could attempt to separate the two since it is a pre-K and magnet issue more so than it is a high school issue, and leave Joe in place for the high school while we do an RFP for the elementary service. And it doesn't mean that Joe may not come back through for that piece if it's something that he can actually add. So it is something that we are considering because it is tough. I have people calling, can you take a picture of what's hanging in toast and send it to me? Because I just want to know. And I get that. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson Turner. Is there anybody with an initial burning question? Ms. Roach.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for going over that and giving me a detailed analysis. I want to apologize in advance if my comments sound disjointed. My Wi-Fi is not working, so I don't have anything in front of me. I'm wondering, I understand why, I sort of understand the rationale for not enrolling new students after December, so that you know the total number of open seats to report to parents in January. But it would seem to me that you could, just as you don't report the number of students in a waiting pool because that number is so ever changing, it would seem to me that you could enroll students right up until the lottery day, and because up until that point you don't know, right?
But
or
then,
is there?
So I'll give you an example. Some of our schools will have 2 seats that come available for that year. So as a parent, I'm going to decide, okay, there's 2 seats, I have a chance. And I use my number 1 spot to get that seat because I also have a sibling in that school. And then come lottery day, those 2 seats are no longer there, and I no longer have my first choice going through the lottery, and my chances of getting my second choice, because it was the next most popular school, are now completely out the window. And so if we didn't have so few seats at certain grade levels in certain schools, then it would probably be more feasible. If I had 10 seats to play with, it would probably be okay, which is why we do it at pre-K. At pre-K, I add 6 seats, actually 6 seats for each class section. So sometimes I have like 18 seats. And so we are able to fill and fill and fill in that instance.
So if I'm understanding correctly, so the reason is because you can list your top 4 choices. So if somebody, say, lists Ash as their top choice because there were 2 seats available in January, but by the time of the lottery there are 0 seats available, would the other schools on their list be knocked up to 1, 2, 3 then?
No, because their application has already been inputted into the system.
Oh,
by
so
the
they
deadline.
wouldn't, okay. And secondly, I was kind of wondering how you can do automated, I mean, I'm sure there's a reason, I just don't understand it, how you can do automated phone calls to remind people to enroll for seats, but couldn't do all the automated phone calls to let people know that they'd gotten a seat?
Because that's a great question. We build the database, we give it to tech, we use robocalls. That's a really good question.
It may be because the robocall you're doing now is one robocall.
It's generic.
You got a seat, please come register, whereas that would have to be specific school by school. You got a seat
At
or you-
such and such school.
Yeah.
Okay. But I am excited about an RFP that would modernize it a little bit rather than making people come down. I think that's part of the process, that first we've modernized it so people don't have to camp out in Academy Park, and now we've modernized it so people don't have to come down to Toast and look at a piece of paper. Post taped to the wall. So I'm excited that we're working to modernize these processes.
Anyone else? Dr. Chachora?
Once again, thank you for your presentation. So, on your metrics, at the end of the year, there were still 300 vacant seats, right? And this is where I'm at odds with. Here are magnet schools, which are, we're trying to attract all the kids, and the programming specific and different, and we're having trouble filling those 300 seats. Meanwhile, in our regular public schools, we have buildings that are so crowded that they're bursting at the seams. It looks like a waste of some resources in some way, where you put in the resources, but it's not being used. Whereas on the other hand, we wish we had more resources to fix the situation on this side. So I don't know if it's doable, but you say that you cut off your last day of December, boom, enrollment has stopped. Is it possible to give a choice to those schools that are overcrowded? Hey, if you want to move to these schools.
So what I would say is, remember, these are March numbers, right? So at the end of March, or after the end of the main lottery, we had 56 seats still open in our magnet schools, primarily in Toast and Albany School of Humanities. And so what will happen is, when we do our monthly lotteries, A, we'll get more applications, and B, that number will likely be cut in half before the school year starts. So our magnet schools, I think, only at 6th grade, and like at the upper grades where you still find a lot of openings, K1, 2, 3, 4, you're not, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Because parents don't want to make that shift that late in the, the elementary career sometimes.
Ms. Wilson, do you have a question?
Thank you for your presentation. I apologize. I don't have a question, just more so when I was reading this, I do feel like it is ripe for a deep review of opportunities to increase the accessibility for individuals. So I'll be very excited when the RFP comes about.
I just have any other questions. Ellen, do you have another question, or are you good?
No, thank you.
Okay. Two quick questions for me. When was the last time that we RFP'd the lottery service? Never in recent, recorded history. Okay. And then pre-K, we have most of those available seats are in pre-K.
Correct.
And I've now reached the edge of my understanding on this, but I know that some of our pre-K seats, we get better reimbursement from the states. Are we able to enroll our pre-K students first in the seats that we get the highest remuneration from, so that those are the full ones? Does it work like that, so that we're maximizing our state reimbursement on pre-K?
No, if I'm understanding you correctly, we do I think we did all the 4-year-olds. We do, the EPK is the higher reimbursement, and that's the one with the, or priority pre-K, with the 3-year-old that gets paid a little bit more.
So
But we're
there's
not,
okay.
so, and we're closing the gap on the other ones, but no, I don't think we're differentiating that way, because they're filling based on parent request.
Okay. And Bill, is that right? There's only the 2 rates? I thought there were 3 rates. I'm sorry, Dr. Turner. I
There
wanted to-
were, there were 3.
No.
As I understand it, they are merging all into one. And so it may have went from 3 to 2 already, but in speaking with Eileen Leffler, who administers these through the grants.
So we're down to, my understanding is we're down to UPK and PPK, if I'm correct, or EPK. And so the EPK rolls in the 3 and 4-year-olds, and so that's where we have, there is a difference in rate for the 3-year-olds versus the 4-year-olds. And then we made up the difference between the 2 grants with the 4-year-old programs, so that we were compensating our providers the same amount. But I can't say that we're filling the one that's completely paid for by the grant first over the ones that are paid for with a combination of grant and general fund, because we're filling them based on the placements that parents are choosing.
Okay, so every placement defines the amount of the reimbursement. There's not 2 different reimbursement streams at a single site, so it's based on parent.
Correct.
For the same age,
Correct.
of course. Okay, that was my question, and I wanted to second what Ms. Wilson said about accessibility. I am pleased to see that the demographics, I pulled up the report that had
Yeah,
the
it has the
missing
column
column.
in there,
The demographics for Montessori are less intensely white in the lottery than it is in the current school, so I think that's a good sign. I am always pleased to see that the lottery numbers, that it's not the lottery that's the problem, right?
it's
The
not.
problem is outside the lottery. It has to do with location, it has to do with pre-K busing, it has to do with the challenges of self-segregating schools in terms of charters and magnets by everywhere in every place that they have ever been tried tend to self-segregate. So I appreciate your bringing that up, and I still think we want to address it, but I'm optimistic to see that the entire community is trying to find ways to access that site, but we still need to have that conversation about, is there something we can do outside the lottery to change that? Anything else on this topic? If not, then I think we are ready to go on to board committee reports. Do we have any board committee reports tonight? Dr. Chator has a report.
So we had the policy committee had our meeting on the 9th. It was a busy day. We already discussed or approved some of the things today, including the code of conduct, the meals and reimbursements and facilities. In addition, we also discussed 4326, which is limited English proficiency instruction. And that will probably come to the board for discussion in August. We discussed community relations goals, 1,000, and also school volunteers and guidelines for school volunteers, 4532. Those would also come in August. There are a few others that we had on the agenda, but we didn't get to it because it was a crazy day with internet not working, and so.
Yeah, policy committee was up bright and early at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Unfortunately, the internet decided not to be awake that early, and so we had some connectivity issues that morning, and so it was an interesting meeting all the way around. Any other board committee reports? Ms. Smith.
Sure, thank you. First, I wanted to just say that appreciate the superintendent in her report mentioning and acknowledging the workforce job fair that was partnered with the unions and great turnout. So we're thrilled about that and pleased about Mission Accomplished their work as well in this outreach process. So thank you. We met this past Tuesday, the 17th, and we had quite a full agenda. We first spoke or talked about the high school construction status update, and there's several items there. I think what I will do, Madam President, is to put the notes together so that the board will have them. I should, just to say a couple of things on that update, we talked about change orders and around the high school, and just so that the board knows, whenever you have a project, a construction project, and particularly one, I guess, of this size, you can expect some things to occur, some things that you might not have planned for or known about, and that has been the case here. So you have been seeing change order requests come through. We also talked about some other kinds of things there with the high school, like the fact that the construction is happening now in the summer, and the beginning of phase 2 that'll start in September. So we talked about that. We also spoke about the middle school configuration piece, and we have perhaps a proposed schedule to talk about, you know, our decision-making process as well as getting us to perhaps a referendum. So more information will be shared with you as we know it. And then we also spoke about the 5 years facilities plan. And as you may know, that the State Education Department requires a building condition survey every 5th year. And that started in the year 2000. And so we're about ready, as I understand, Mr. Hogan, to kind of have another 5th year plan put together. And we do have some work that is, you know, being done that's already in that planning. So you'll see us talk about pretty soon maybe some modifications or changes to Harriet Gibbons and to a couple other of our existing facilities based on that plan. So we'll be sharing more information with you about that. And let's see. And I just again on that facilities plan, I want to make sure that it's also clear to the board that the way that some parts of that plan are put together is based on input from principals, staff, you as board members. Dr. Chatur, I have a couple things that I know are on your agenda. I've got them listed here. And so I just wanted to just make sure all of you knew, you know, that there's a process around the development of that plan. And I think that concludes it. We have a schedule of upcoming meetings. Let's see. Anyway, I will make sure you know that. Mr. Hogan, you don't happen to know that next one, do you? Yeah, it's
I think I can look it up.
because we did talk about 5:30 on. I have so many papers.
Oh, I think, yeah, Monday, the 13th of
13th.
August.
There we go. Thank you. Monday, the 13th of August at 5:30 at Academy Park. And all are welcome. Thank you. Madam President, I should say that we welcomed Ms. Wilson to the Facilities Committee. So thank you.
Terrific, thank you very much. Any other committee reports? Any items of other business that board members would like to share? Ms. Wilson.
I want to reiterate that, of course, the summer celebration is taking place on July 21st, but the very next day there will be, in response to much of the violence that the superintendent spoke about, concerned citizens across the community will reconvene there the very next day around 4 p.m. and conduct a peace walk and discussion around those issues. So I feel it's a beautiful sentiment that two things are occurring in Crink Park that same weekend, and wanted to alert everybody.
That is lovely. Any other business? Then I would like to entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussion of particular student discipline and a particular personnel employment issue. Ms. Wilson, and seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor? That is 5. We will not be conducting any other public business after we return from executive session. Anyone who would like to stay for us to formally adjourn the meeting is welcome, but we will not be conducting any other business after executive session. Thank you.